China attacks US B-2 bomber, a fatal miscalculation on August 12, 2025. In the tense and disputed skies above Scarborough Shoal, the unthinkable occurred. Without warning, a Chinese HQ-19 anti-stealth missile was launched from a heavily fortified coastal battery 142 nautical miles away, streaking through the sky at blistering speeds toward an American B-2 Spirit bomber. This was no ordinary aircraft. The B-2 Spirit, a symbol of American air dominance, is one of only 19 in existence, valued at $1 billion each, and capable of delivering 40,000 pounds of precision munitions. Its radar signature is so small that it appears no larger than a bird on enemy screens. Yet in that moment, China gambled everything by attempting to shoot down the crown jewel of US air power. The HQ-19 interceptor, traveling at Mach 14, nearly 10,700 miles per hour, was designed for one purpose: to annihilate stealth aircraft within seconds of detection. Its warhead packed 400 pounds of high explosive fragmentation power, capable of obliterating even the most elusive bomber. Within 42 seconds, the missile was closing in. Inside the B-2's cockpit, alarms blared as the threat display lit up. The pilot, trained for the unimaginable, executed sharp maneuvers while deploying electronic countermeasures. At 35,000 feet, a blinding flash tore through the sky as the HQ-19 detonated prematurely, its lock broken. The B-2 Spirit survived, but the world had changed. The entire encounter lasted just 1 minute and 54 seconds, but in those moments, China had crossed a line that could not be ignored. The response in the Indo-Pacific Command Center, red warning lights flared, secure lines buzzed with urgency. For Washington, this was no accident, no misunderstanding. This was an unprovoked act of aggression. Within 5 minutes, satellite imagery confirmed the exact origin of the launch, a hardened HQ-19 site along China's southern coastline. The launch signature matched that of a first-strike anti-stealth system, a weapon designed not for defense, but for escalation. By 9:57 a.m., a secure video conference linked the President of the United States, the Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and the Commander of Indo-Pacific Command. The stakes were laid bare. The B-2 Spirit represents 10% of America's stealth bomber fleet. The destruction of even one would cost $2.1 billion and deliver a catastrophic strategic blow. There was no time for hesitation. The president's decision was made in under 3 minutes. The order was clear. Operation Iron Dagger was authorized. The counter-strike, the mission objectives were precise and uncompromising. Destroy the missile battery responsible for the launch. Blind the radar network that enabled the attack. Cripple the launch facility beyond recovery while minimizing collateral damage. The countdown began. T-6 hours until launch. On Guam and aboard the USS Ronald Reagan, crews scrambled into action. B-2 Spirits were armed with deep strike ordnance, stealth fighters prepped for escort. Swarms of autonomous suicide drones were programmed to overwhelm Chinese defenses. At sea level, the drones would surge forward, saturating the base's defenses. From above, the B-2 Spirits would glide through the night, invisible on radar, carrying the full weight of America's fury. The target, a fortified Chinese coastal base, considered impregnable until now. The question: China had fired the first shot, the B-2 had survived. But the act itself had already shattered the fragile balance in the South China Sea. Would Beijing now face the full weight of American retaliation? And how much would China ultimately pay for daring to target America's most powerful symbol in the sky? If you were in command, would you strike back immediately or wait for Beijing's explanation? A response was being prepared, one that would echo across the entire Pacific Ocean like a thunderclap. But before we dive into the exact counter-strike the United States had in motion, support us by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. Now, let's walk through history together. By 10:15 a.m., the framework of Operation Iron Dagger was locked into Indopacom's mission board. This was not a symbolic warning shot. This was a precision-engineered strike, designed to obliterate the HQ-19 launch site in under 90 seconds from the first weapon release. At the center of the plan stood the United States' most elusive warhead, the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber. Each unit worth $2.1 billion carried enough destructive power to rival the entire air forces of some nations. Two Spirits, call signs Nightfall 1 and Nightfall 2, formed the backbone of the strike package. Between them, they carried 16 GBU-31V3B, JDAM's 2,000-pound precision-guided bombs with a circular error probable of less than 10 meters. At that level of accuracy, they could hit a single doorway from 25,000 feet. Each one was capable of blasting a 10-meter crater through reinforced concrete. Supporting the Spirits were two F-35C Lightning IIs, armed with the APG-81 AESA radar, able to track up to 1,000 targets simultaneously. They carried AGM-8 AGAA RGMA anti-radiation missiles that could streak at Mach 2+, hunting and killing hostile radar systems the moment they came online. The strike force was sustained by two KC-46A Pegasus aerial refueling tankers, each hauling 212,000 pounds of jet fuel. Without them, the B-2's 6,000 nautical mile round trip would be impossible. These flying fuel depots extended the mission's reach indefinitely, ensuring America's stealth bombers could launch, strike, and return without compromise. Meanwhile, deception played its own lethal role. From the deck of the USS Ronald Reagan, 8F, a 1-8E Super Hornets launched 32 ADM-16 Omal J decoys. Each one replicated the radar signature of a lumbering B-52 bomber, while simultaneously emitting 500-watt jamming signals across multiple bands. On Chinese radar screens, it looked as though an entire wing of heavy bombers was thundering in from the east. Backing them were EA-18G Growlers, pouring broadband jamming energy across a 150-mile range, silencing and distorting enemy communications, blinding early warning networks, and leaving Chinese radar operators second-guessing every blip on their scopes. The assault plan unfolded in three converging attack vectors: Mauled J decoys storming in from the east, F-35Cs sweeping in from the south, and the B-2 Spirits threading in silently from the southwest through a radar corridor so narrow that their cross-section appeared smaller than a golf ball. By T-minus for hours, every aircraft was airborne. Somewhere along China's coast, an HQ-19 battery stood silently, its crews unaware that over $6 billion worth of stealth aircraft, 80,000 pounds of precision ordnance, and more than 1 million pounds of jet fuel had already been committed to wiping it out. What other weapons do you think could have made this American strike even more unstoppable? Now, let's watch as the destruction unfolds. By 2:03 a.m. local time, the strike package crossed the commit line in the Philippine Sea. The Spirits were now less than 320 nautical miles from the Chinese coast. Their radar cross-section was so minuscule 0.001 square meters that even advanced phased array radars would have to be within 25 miles to secure a stable track. At 35,000 feet, the Spirits throttled their GE-F118 engines to minimal output, cutting their heat signatures until they were nearly invisible to infrared seekers. Ahead of them, the 30 Mauled J decoys were already at work, each projected the radar. Return of a full-sized bomber while blasting jamming energy into Chinese early warning frequencies. On radar screens, it appeared as if a massive formation of B-52s was charging in from the east. The deception was flawless. Chinese HQ-9 and HQ-2 batteries pivoted their launchers toward the Phantom Formation, wasting precious tracking resources. On shadows, meanwhile, the F-35C skimmed low and wide, scanning with their AAQ-37 DAS system, capable of detecting a missile launch from 800 miles away. Their anti-radiation missiles were locked and ready, prepared to silence any short-range SAM radars that might dare to light up as the Spirits closed in. At 2:14 a.m., the Spirits crossed the coastline at 31,000 feet, beginning their descent into attack profile. The HQ-19 missile battery sat within a 3-acre complex ringed by blast walls, topped with a hardened radar dome, and anchored by a fortified command bunker. The APQ-181 radar aboard the Spirits painted the site in sub-meter resolution, feeding exact coordinates into the JDAM MIS, sensing them with GPS guidance accurate to within 18 inches. Weapons hot, came the call from Nightfall 1. In less than 15 seconds, both Spirits released all 16 JDAM MIS. Each bomb screamed silently downward. At nearly Mach 1, staggered in its fall to maximize destructive coverage. At over 2,000 degrees, the blaze consumed everything, while ammunition stores erupted one after another in violent chain detonations, their thunderclaps echoing across the shoreline and audible nearly 20 miles away. Through it all, the B-2 Spirits never faltered. Their formation held tight, wings slicing westward toward the exfiltration corridor. Engines ran cool no afterburners, no signatures slipping back into the cloak of invisibility that had carried them in. Behind them, the F-35C escorts lingered momentarily, their infrared sensors sweeping the ruin below. Confirmation was immediate. The HQ-19 battery no longer existed. The radar network was blind, launchers gutted, the command post reduced to silence. At precisely 21 a.m., the strike force was already across open water, fading into the Pacific night. For Beijing, the blow was devastating not merely in terms of destroyed hardware valued at hundreds of millions, but in the humiliation of watching their most advanced anti-stealth defenses erased in under 2 minutes by aircraft they had never even detected. By 3:07 a.m., the strike package had cleared the danger zone completely. A passing satellite cross-check confirmed what the F-35s had already transmitted. 100% of the HQ-19 site's combat capacity was annihilated. What had once been a hardened bastion of coastal defense was now nothing more than a smoldering scar along the shoreline. The radar mast lay broken, jagged like a snapped bone. Missile launchers were reduced to blackened heaps of twisted metal. Even the command bunker built to withstand bombardment had collapsed into a crater more than 30 feet deep. Damage tallies from the Pentagon painted the scale of the loss. 3 HQ-19 launchers, each worth over $60 million, obliterated. A sophisticated phased array radar system carrying a price tag of $150 million, reduced to ash. For auxiliary support vehicles destroyed. And the hardened command center priceless in strategic value leveled beyond recognition. All told, China's direct financial losses were estimated between $350 million and $400 million, gone in less than 2 minutes of combat. Yet the financial hit paled beside the operational one. With the HQ-19 installation offline, an entire 120-mile stretch of China's coastal air defense grid had gone dark. Into that gap opened a fleeting but invaluable corridor and unguarded lane through which U.S. carrier groups, maritime patrol aircraft, and ISR drones could maneuver without the constant threat of long-range anti-stealth missiles. At 3:15 a.m., Washington responded. A presidential statement was broadcast worldwide, reinforced by satellite imagery and radar logs. The tone was blunt, unequivocal. The B-2 South had been engaged without provocation while flying in international airspace. The United States, acting under Article 51 of the UN Charter, had exercised its inherent right to self-defense. Let this be clear, the president declared, "We will defend our aircraft, our crews, and our freedom to operate wherever international law permits." The diplomatic shockwave was immediate. Within 6 hours, allies including the Philippines, Japan, and Australia issued official statements of solidarity, condemning China's missile launch as reckless and destabilizing. Financial markets in Asia dipped in the morning session but steadied quickly as investors grasped that the American strike was measured, disciplined, and limited in scope. The message had been delivered, base destroyed, skies secured without igniting a regional war. Inside China, intercepted intelligence revealed chaos across the Eastern Theater Command. Mobile HQ-19 batteries were being redeployed inland, radar frequencies were being recalibrated, satellites repositioned to patch the sudden hole in coastal coverage, dubbed the Scarborough Gap. But the embarrassment remained unshakable. More than $350 million in cutting-edge air defense assets had been obliterated by bombers that had never once appeared on radar. By sunrise, the B-2 spirits were back on the tarmac in Guam, engines cooling under the pre-dawn air. The mission had lasted just over 9 hours, spanning more than 6,000 nautical miles, and had demonstrated one chilling truth to Beijing. When the United States decides to strike, even the most sophisticated defenses can be torn apart in mere minutes. The incident, soon to be known as the Scarborough Strike, was over in less than a single day, but its reverberations would echo for years. What began at 9:42 p.m. as the quiet transit of a lone B-2 through contested skies had ended in a flawlessly executed assault that erased one of China's premier anti-stealth systems in exactly 88 seconds. The message carried no subtlety. America's resolve, speed, and precision left no doubt. Threats could be eliminated before the adversary even realized the battle had begun. For Washington, the operation reinforced deterrence and validated treaty commitments in the Pacific. For Beijing, it was a bitter lesson that even with hundreds of millions invested in advanced radar and missile systems, detection was no guarantee of survival. The B-2 South had flown over 6,000 nautical miles, dropped nearly 80,000 pounds of ordnance, and returned home without so much as a radar lock trailing them. Military analysts would later identify 3 decisive factors: stealth technology that still dominates the skies decades after its debut, seamless integration of joint force assets across air, sea, and electronic warfare, and finally, the political will to act with speed and certainty under pressure. To America's allies, the strike was more than a tactical victory, it was reassurance. Treaties like the U.S. Philippines Mutual Defense Agreement carried weight, not just in words but in action, and as the Pacific returned to its uneasy, quiet, one reality was etched into the calculus of every potential adversary. The next time hostile radar locks onto an American aircraft, there will be no question about the speed, precision, and certainty of the response.